There's a weight crushing your chest, and you didn't ask for it. Every insult that landed, every disrespect you swallowed, every argument you keep replaying. You're clutching all of this like daggers in both hands, bleeding, but refusing to let go. And here's the killer: you believe this is normal, that certain people are born with inner peace, and others simply weren't. That rage lives in your bloodstream. That caring means suffering. But I'm about to show you what's actually happening. You're not furious because humanity is corrupt. You're furious because nobody showed you how to become bulletproof. Consider what happened last week. Somebody said something that burrowed deep. Perhaps it seemed minor, perhaps it detonated everything. Either way, hours passed, and they forgot about it completely. While you're still seething, still rehearsing perfect responses in your mind, still carrying that familiar ache in your ribs. They're asleep, you're not. And this is the cycle, right? New people, new wounds, identical trap, identical explosion. You swear to yourself you'll remain composed tomorrow, but tomorrow is a carbon copy of today. The cast rotates, but the performance never changes. Here's the secret nobody shares: your inner peace isn't stolen from you, it's surrendered willingly over and over to individuals who've earned nothing and moments that mean less. Peace isn't stolen, it's surrendered willingly. But imagine if I revealed there's a different path, that 2 millennia ago warriors facing death, betrayal, and collapsing civilizations discovered how to remain centered through absolute hell, not through denial, not through numbing, but through mastering something 99% of people ignore completely. 6 practices, ancient, battle-tested, devastating, not complex, not spiritual, just ruthlessly efficient at transforming you into someone unbreakable. Not because the world stops attacking, but because you stop swallowing the hook. If you're committed to becoming immovable, right eye. Choose calm in the comments. Picture opening your eyes tomorrow morning and understanding that nothing outside can touch your calm anymore. Someone attempts to bait you, and instead of that old familiar fire, you experience pure stillness. You watch their tactics with detachment. Instead of fury, you recognize their language for what it truly is: just vibrations in air, with zero authority over your inner kingdom. Visualize moving through tomorrow with this unbreakable core. Traffic jams don't trigger you, toxic people don't hijack your emotions. Surprise obstacles appear, and you address them with precision. Instead of panic, you've abandoned being a reactor and claimed your throne as ruler. This isn't wishful thinking. This is the guaranteed result when you install these practices. You transform into the individual who enters hostile rooms and somehow shifts the temperature just through presence. Others begin questioning how you maintain such composure. They search for your hidden technique, but the revolution is happening inside you. Rest deeper, because you've stopped rehearsing conflicts at midnight. You have surplus energy. Because you've quit incinerating it on bitterness, your connections strengthen. Because you've stopped interpreting everything as a personal assault, you realize that 90% of what once disturbed you had nothing to do with you. This is the destination. This is what ancient philosophers accomplished, and this is precisely where these 6 practices will deliver you. The distance between your current position and your desired position isn't an ocean wide, it simply demands you construct a walkway. So how do you journey from perpetual fury to authentic immovability? The solution rests in 6 precise practices that Stoic masters employed every day. These aren't rocket science. They don't demand you disappear to a monastery or dedicate countless hours to meditation. What they absolutely require is dedication and repetition. Each practice stacks on the last, building a base so reinforced that nothing penetrates it. Envision them as protective layers for your consciousness. The opening practice shields you from outside attacks. The second trains you to command your responses. By the moment you install the 6th, you'll have erected an internal citadel that's totally immune to disorder. Marcus Aurelius one of history's most commanding leaders, used these identical practices to preserve his equilibrium while governing an empire waging battles and surviving treachery. Epictetus, who began life in chains, used them to discover liberty even when he possessed no external freedom. If these practices delivered for them under those conditions, imagine their impact on your life. Let's construct your walkway. Let's begin with the opening practice that will radically alter how you process attacks. The opening practice is training yourself to understand that nothing carries inherent value or harm. Events exist as neutral. What transforms them into agony or pleasure is completely your interpretation. This seems obvious, but it's life-altering. Right this second, when somebody attacks you verbally, you process that attack as an undeniable wound. It seems like they launched a missile, and you took the hit. But here's the liberation that changes everything. Language is merely sound behavior, is merely motion. The driver who blocked your lane didn't destroy your morning. Your story about their behavior destroyed your morning. Epictetus captured it flawlessly. It's not circumstances themselves, but how you interpret them that creates experience. Every single second of rage you've ever known originated from your belief that something was wrong, someone was wrong, the circumstance was wrong, existence should be different. But what if you quit fighting with what is? Stop fighting reality, start choosing your response. What if instead of instantly categorizing every annoyance as terrible, you stopped and acknowledged that it's simply an occurrence with no built-in emotional weight? Here's your training protocol. The instant something irritates you, intercept yourself before the fury completely ignites. Ask yourself, what narrative am I constructing about this moment? You'll uncover that you've piled on layers of meaning. They blocked your path, and you concluded it signals they're selfish. Your colleague seemed cold, and you concluded it signals they dislike you, but you don't truly know any of that. You're assuming, and your assumptions are manufacturing your pain. Practice meeting provocations with fascination instead of interpretation. When somebody does something that typically enrages you, consider, that's curious. I wonder what drove that. This tiny shift in viewpoint generates enormous room between the occurrence and your response. In that room, you recover your authority. This is your foundation. Master this practice, and you've instantly slashed your fury by half. The external world hasn't shifted, but your connection to it has utterly transformed. The second practice is creating a gap between trigger and action. This is where you forge true self-mastery. Most humans are running on autopilot. An event occurs, and they explode immediately. Somebody delivers something harsh, and the retaliation exits their lips before conscious thought arrives. They're functioning on raw reflex, like creatures reacting to danger. But you're not a creature. You possess higher brain function. You can decide. Marcus Aurelius documented, you have dominion over your thoughts, not external happenings. Understand this, and you will locate power. That dominion exists in the gap. It's the interval between what occurs to you and what you elect to do about it. Here's what makes this transformative. In that fraction of a second before you act, you have the chance to ask yourself, will reacting with rage benefit me? Will it fix anything? Will I respect this choice tomorrow? Nearly every time the response is no, but absent the gap, you never pose those questions. Imagine your rage as ocean swell. When something provokes you, the swell starts climbing. Most humans surf that swell straight to the wreckage, allowing it to carry them into choices they'll regret. But you can train to observe the swell building and refuse to surf it. You can permit it to climb and descend without ever jumping on. Practice this intentionally. When you sense rage beginning to climb physically, stop. Take 3 full breaths. Before you speak, count to 10. Remove yourself for 5 minutes. If necessary. It may seem strange initially, but that strangeness is a small cost for the liberation you're claiming. What you'll find is that most provocations dissolve when you grant them time. That remark that seemed so offensive 5 minutes prior suddenly appears silly. That circumstance that seemed critical now appears solvable. The gap doesn't merely block destructive reactions, it frequently exposes that zero reaction is required. This practice converts you from reactive to responsive, and that conversion is everything. The third practice is mercilessly separating what you command from what you don't. This is arguably the most core Stoic practice, and it's utterly critical for immovability. Here's the brutal reality: you don't command other humans. You don't command situations. You don't command history or ensure tomorrow. You don't even command your emotions most of the time. What do you command? Your decisions, your effort, your lens, your integrity. That's it. Epictetus instructed that all misery originates from attempting to command things beyond your reach. When you become furious because somebody didn't act how you preferred, you're suffering because you're attempting to command them. When you're anxious about results, you're suffering because you're attempting to command tomorrow. When you're disturbed by others' opinions, you're suffering because you're attempting to command their thoughts. Quit it. Seriously, just quit attempting to command things you hold zero power over. It's draining, and it's the root source of all your turmoil. Instead, channel all your force into the things you genuinely command. You don't command whether somebody honors you, but you command whether you behave honorably. You don't command whether you receive the title, but you command the excellence of your contribution. You don't command whether people admire you, but you command whether you admire yourself. Here's your training protocol. Create 2 columns. In column 1, document everything that's presently irritating you. In column 2, indicate whether each item exists within your command or beyond it. You'll be astonished at how much mental force is flowing toward things in that second category. Now pledge this: every moment you catch yourself stressing about or becoming furious about something beyond your command, instantly reroute that force to something within your command. This isn't surrender. This is tactical precision. This is positioning your power where it genuinely lives. Master this, and half your anxiety evaporates immediately. The fourth practice is engaging in negative rehearsal, and it's going to sound backwards initially. The Stoics routinely envisioned worst-case outcomes, not to cultivate pessimism, but to forge emotional armor and gratitude for present blessings. Here's why this functions: most of your fury stems from failed expectations. You expect humans to demonstrate courtesy, and when they don't, you're enraged. You expect existence to demonstrate fairness, and when it doesn't, you're crushed. You expect things to flow smoothly, and when they don't, you collapse. But what if you launched each morning by briefly envisioning things breaking? What if you invested 2 minutes acknowledging that you might encounter hostile humans today, that schemes might crumble, that surprise crises might emerge? Not obsessing over these scenarios, just recognizing them. Marcus Aurelius would rise and tell himself, today I will meet challenging humans, I will confront frustration and obstacles. This is guaranteed. And because he'd already mentally rehearsed for these scenarios, they couldn't ambush him. When the challenging human materialized, he wasn't surprised or furious. He was prepared. This practice also generates deep appreciation. When you routinely envision losing the things you treasure, you quit taking them for granted. Envision your vehicle destroyed permanently. Suddenly you're appreciative. It functions. Envision a beloved person vanished. Suddenly you cherish every interaction with them. Envision losing your vitality. Suddenly you're grateful for your capacity to move and exist. Attempt this tomorrow morning. Invest just 3 minutes envisioning potential obstacles you might confront. Somebody might disrespect you. Traffic might be nightmarish. You might hear devastating news. Just recognize these scenarios without spiraling. Then, when these things genuinely occur, you won't be ambushed. You'll think, yes, here's one of those scenarios I acknowledged. I anticipated this might occur. And that simple recognition completely alters your emotional reaction. You're not cultivating pessimism, you're cultivating readiness. And readiness is the antidote to being disturbed. When you anticipate nothing, you can't Experience disappointment. When you rehearse for obstacles, they transform into anticipated rather than catastrophic. The fifth practice is engaging in what Stoics term the cosmic view. This is about pulling back and observing your existence, your struggles, and your provocations from universal scale. When somebody insults you or something breaks it, seems enormous in that instant, it occupies your complete awareness. Your fury seems totally justified, because this circumstance is your universe right now, but it's not your universe, it's barely a particle. Marcus Aurelius would routinely envision observing Earth from the cosmos. From that vantage point he could observe the Roman Empire as a microscopic dot. His struggles, which seemed gigantic in his daily existence, became invisible. When observed from above, the humans who irritated him were just one of billions of organisms existing and expiring on this rotating sphere. This isn't about dismissing your feelings, it's about accurate scale. That conflict you experienced yesterday, in 7 days, you'll scarcely recall it. In 12 months. You'll have erased it entirely. In a decade, it will have never occurred as far as your memory knows. So why are you granting it the authority to demolish your day-to-day? Here's the practice. When something irritates you, instantly pull back. Ask yourself, will this register in 5 years? Nearly always the response is no. Then ask, will this register in 5 months? Still likely, no. Will this register in 5 days? At this stage, you're beginning to observe how insignificant most provocations genuinely are. Take it deeper. Envision observing this instant from the cosmos. See yourself as a microscopic organism on a microscopic sphere in an endless universe, becoming upset about something that wouldn't even appear from that vantage point. Not to diminish yourself,